program. Joining me right now, as you could see on that card, is the founder and chief executive officer of Sparkle, Mr. Uzoma Dozie, the former managing director of Diamond Bank. Hello, Mr. Dozie, and welcome to the program.
Hello, Nancy. Great to be on the show.
Fantastic. Good to have you. Now, let's get started. I really would like to know the evolution because we've seen that digital banking has taken giant steps, at least in recent years, perhaps since the early 2000s. And you've been foremost in that space. So I want you to speak to me a bit about the evolution of digital banking, and perhaps if there's really a difference between digital bank and digital banking.
Okay, thank you very much. Very interesting question. But I believe the advent of digital banking, or should I say, digital banking actually started with mobile, when mobile phones came around and then had the data. We moved to 2G, between 2G and 3G, and that's when we saw the opportunities. Before that, it was to do any transactions, you had to go to a bank, or you had to use your card at an ATM. Mobile phones completely changed all that, and because in Nigeria, especially a place like Nigeria, where we didn't even have landlines, mobile phones was the first opportunity for us to really develop. And so a lot of technology and a lot of innovations came out of the mobile phone. And so that is why we saw a big adoption from a Nigerian perspective, because we didn't have an alternative. In other developed economies, there were alternatives. And so you saw this massive adoption of mobile phones. You saw this opportunity by financial institutions to use it to actually reach more people, reduce their cost, and come up with new solutions. And so that's why, as far back as 2021, you will see that in Africa, we are, from a digital perspective, I think we did 3.7 billion real-time payment as far back as 2021. And I think that number has grown astronomically since then. We're the sixth, what is number six bank when it comes to globally, when it comes to real-time payments, because of that heavy adoption. And when you think that this is only 50% of the population that is actually driving this, it just tells you where the opportunity is. Now, digital bank and digital banking, I would say, first of all, what is digital? To me, I mean, my own definition of digital is paperless, cashless, and contactless. Contactless, especially after the COVID incidents. And so, how digital are you depends on how much paper you're using, how much cash is in your system, and your contactless, or the automation of your system. So we've seen traditional banks, begin to adopt some digital banking capabilities to reduce their cost, to reach other people, and to also reach the new type of customers that do not want to do traditional banking. They don't want to go to a banking hall, but actually want to do banking on their phone. And those are the generation that have adopted a mobile first philosophy. If it's not on the mobile phone, I'm not interested. So, like, if you want me to access services, that is where I want to be. And we're seeing that. I'll tell you for a fact that my son has never been to a banking hall. He doesn't understand what a bank is. All he knows is that if I can't access the services on my mobile phone, then it's not for me.
Mm. Of course, the children we're having now are digital natives, and they didn't have the kind of experience that some of us had, that even people that are older than us, where they used to take tally number,
Yes.
tally number, and perhaps some of us will be in the banks and wait for a very long time. So you're having a lot of digital natives now. I wonder what banking perhaps would even be in the next 5, 10, 15 years from now. But what do you think about these neo banks, this challenger banks right now, giving the traditional banks a run for their money? Do you think that because of the evolution that we've seen, that you think traditional banks also would evolve? Because we're also seeing traditional banks going now into digital banking. You spearheaded that when you were in Diamond Bank, for example. I think perhaps Diamond Bank was one of the first, if not the first, if I'm not mistaken, because I've been covering this bit for a while. So what do you think about the neobanks and the challenger banks giving the traditional banks a run for their money? That is one. Then number two is, let's take a look at the growing trend of this space. As there's a growing trend of it, there's also a growing trend of trust. There are trust issues, because you tell me I should be able to have all my banking services or even financial services on the phone. Who should I hold if there's an issue, and all of that. So speak to me about that and how you think as a player, even in that space, that we can overcome the trust issues.
Thank you, Nancy. Let me start with the first one. I would say, I think I would dare say that I'm the only, I think I'm unique. I'm the only person who's actually run a top 5 bank commercial bank in Nigeria and now started a digital bank. So I know a bit about the two. Now, and I think the dynamics of both are different. And yes, we do compete, but there's definitely opportunities to complement. And also, I wouldn't go as far as say that that the new banks and digital banks and challenger banks are giving the banks a run for their money now, but I will say that we are giving them food for thought and showing them that if they don't change or if they don't adopt the new ways or start to be thinking how they are serving their customers and how they are driving their business, we're going to give them a run for their money in the very near future. And as technology improves and evolves, you're seeing a change in the competitive space. And as your Gen Zs and your millennials begin to also grow and become key part in economic development, right? The type of transactions begin to move to these digital focused banks. And so as per for the so you will see that today the advantage that traditional banks have and will have for a while is that one, they have a lot of capital and they have a capital and a lot of trust. And trust stems from the fact that they've gone through a lot of economic cycles. They have lots of physical branches so people can see them. People know who they are, so the ecosystem is educated as to what commercial banks stand for. They are heavily regulated and all that. So capital and trust is a very key component in people trusting you, keeping their money with you. And digital banks haven't got there yet. I think what digital banks are great at today are strong transaction capability, giving you like heavily data driven and giving you insights into what your money is doing for you or what you're doing, and also connecting you to other platforms. These are the things that people are going to want as economy evolves, and also as the economy becomes more digital. Now, as per trust, and that's a very that's a very, very, very good question. Now, I think that's where the regulator plays a big hand, and that's what the regulator is driving. Because one, the regulator also understands that the market, like the way we do transactions, is going digital, and so we must adopt it. But we must also carry the public along. We must create a lot of education needs to be done as to what are digital banks, what are mobile money organizations, what are PSPs, because they all carry certain responsibilities and functional capabilities. As a bank, as Sparkle, for example, Sparkle is a microfinance bank, and so it means we are licensed by central bank to take customer deposits. Their deposits are insured, and we do transactions. Now, today, a lot of customers who are using digital platforms do not know the difference between a microfinance bank, a mobile money, or a PSP. And so that is the education that needs to be done by people like Sparkle, by the regulator, so that people know exactly what they're getting themselves into. That is the only way that we can build that trust. Because if people are unaware, they will just see um, all people, all mobile solutions as the same, and that will actually be negative for the economy from a trust perspective. Because the future is digital, and the more connected your ecosystem is, um, the more competitive we are going to be as a nation. So it's actually very imperative that we become aware, because the more you know, the simpler the processes are, the more you're going to build trust, and the more you will see increased adoption.
Mm. It's very interesting, and I like that you raised this. And let's dig deep a bit into the differences, because Nigerians really don't know the difference between a PSB, a payment service bank, for example, and a mobile banking, and a microfinance bank that has gone digital, like you. So I would like you to really explain, because sometimes, I hear people say, oh, you just do transfer. You can't catch anybody. You know, if you hold anybody, if your money, if you have problem, who do you need to call
Yeah.
on? And that is also part of why the trust issues are growing, because if you do transactions on some of these platforms, you don't actually know who to call, unlike a traditional bank where you go into the bank and you bring down thunder and brimstone until they answer you. Here, there's really no one except, through tech platforms and all of that. So I really like you to explain further. So for people that are watching us this morning, they really, really understand. I know for microfinance banks, there are even regulations from central bank across these three platforms which I've mentioned. But
Yeah.
how do you now, really know the difference?
Okay, so as a bank, so microfinance banks are just the first tier, lower tier of banks that are licensed to take deposits and also do financial transactions and to lend to to uh, to, to customers. In fact, microfinance banks, their primary objective is to actually provide financial loans to to the community. And of course, that comes with, of course, because as your license, they are you have, in fact, the regulatory oversight is actually much higher. You have certain reports that you must do every time. So there's a heavier burden being a bank. Not so. Then you have your mobile money operators who are similar, um, who are mobile money are similar, but do not, in many cases, do not have digital banking capabilities. So a lot do now, but mobile money has not taken off successfully as it's been done in East Africa, and that's because of the, should I say, our evolved settlement system. NIBS does exactly what mobile money does, and even better. And so that's why that has not evolved. Then you have your PSPs that actually do transfers for people, but are not deposit taking banks. And so I think the clear difference is that one, um, licensed banks um, licensed banks take deposits. Non-licensed banks are not allowed to take deposits from customers. And of course, those deposits are insured by
The NDIC.
NDIC, and that's actually key. And so that's why, I mean, the central bank has told, like, all MFBs, first of all, when you like advertise, you must put MFB there, so that so organizations or whatever you are, you have to put actually the you have to put what you are licensed to do, so that customers are aware of what, should I say, the of what they are doing with those organizations, and and what they, so that they're aware.
Mm. I like that we actually talked about this, because there was a statement, there was a circular, I think, from NIBS a few weeks ago that sent, everyone into a furore, and people did not really understand. And we had some of you in that sector. I don't know if your company was part of it, that started coming out with statements and for clarification. No, we're not part of what NIBS is saying. We can't take money, we can't we can't take deposit, we can't also pay out. But what NIBS was doing at that time was to really demarcate and tell Nigerians that there is really a difference in all of this. Now, let's talk about the technology moving forward. Part of the challenge that we've also seen in this sector is the technology. How has it grown over the past few years, and what other challenges are you facing technologically? Or are we really there? Because you mentioned even mobile banking earlier. For Nigeria, for example, we're trailing behind Kenya because Kenya is the model in Africa, perhaps if not of the world. Talking about mobile banking, we know what Safaricom and M-Pesa has done in Kenya and all of that. So because of technology, so how would you say ours has fared in the past few years?
Well, I think when it comes to digital payments and digital banking, we actually dwarf many countries, including Kenya, and that is because even as the CEO of a commercial bank, then our mobile banking transactions were actually quite big. In fact, we had 3 million customers actually using our mobile banking platform as a Diamond Bank, and I think that the only country that had higher numbers was and that is mobile banking and not mobile money was a commercial bank in South Africa. Then if you add all the banks in Nigeria who actually whose customers were using mobile banking, was huge. When Diamond Bank came together with MTN to come up with Diamond Yellow, we brought 15 million people into mobile money stroke mobile banking into a mobile banking space. So I think what Nigeria has been very good at is actually using new technologies. Every time new technologies come in, right, to actually improve the banking experience for customers and go into new markets and come out with new products. Now, see, there's a big difference between mobile money and digital banking. Mobile money is it's transferring money in and out. So lending, the lending opportunities that are limited. Should I say, find the financial other financial services are also limited because that's what mobile money does for you. Digital banking allows you to do full suite of banking, but from a digital perspective, and that's one of the biggest clear differences. So when it comes to that, I think we are in Nigeria. We're actually far ahead than I would say even East Africa, and we are seeing a lot of entry into the space. And when you will see that traditional banks are setting up new platforms to actually move some of their customers who want to access the services digitally into that, because one of the things that traditional banks have are legacy systems that do not allow them to take full opportunity of the new technologies that are here today. And so one of the ways to actually achieve that is to set up new systems and then bring them, then reverse engineer much later. So I think the challenge, so like when it comes to, like, you will see that today in terms of all digital banks in Nigeria, most digital banks I know, they're accessing cloud services. They're either using Amazon, Azure, or Google to actually connect with their customers. At Sparkle today, we don't have any. In fact, we are 100% cloud-based business, and taking advantage of cloud-based opportunities. So things like even generative AI is something that we're actually adopting to our system, and we have automated processing systems using like robotic process automation. So using robots to actually do the work of people, because we are a 24-hour bank. We have customers who are everywhere in the world. So time is not something that we're not a 9-to-5 business. We can never be a 9-to-5 business. So we must be available to our customers. And so like depending on technology, it becomes a key factor. And if you're actually going to succeed.
Now, let's take a look at safety. What measures do you think should be put in place to ensure the safety of digital transactions? If we take a look at, you know that a lot of customers are coming in from the traditional banking space, and because of their dissatisfaction with traditional banking spaces, take a look at COVID, for example, when the whole world was at home, that was when we also saw the growth, as it were, of digital banking as services. But there were also issues around fraud. There were also issues about the safety and security of digital transactions. So what measures do you think can be put in place to ensure the safety of digital transactions? We've seen what has been happening in the past few weeks. You're in Nigeria, I'm in Nigeria. We see all the kind of discussions that go on X. Please pay me the tax central bank, and everyone is running helter-skelter. So how should we address that?
So let me answer this question in a different manner. No, the one of the greatest advantage of digital is that it brings transparency. It sheds light everywhere. So you know when things go wrong and you know the volume of what has gone wrong and you can address it. Now, in traditional banking, if you are missing money in the vault, you'll never know until you do a count. If someone has stolen your check leaves, you will never know until and you get your balance. So what digital bank does is actually sheds light on transactions, gives you more transparency, and just shows you where the problems are, and you can deal with that. And that is why organizations are spending a lot, especially the ones who are actually moving to digital or using digital solutions, are also investing a lot of resources in cybersecurity, security to prevent cyber fraud. Risk management is moving to, like, in a traditional bank where the big concerns are operational risk because of.
And I would like you to land on that, as well as some of the dark sides that we're seeing to this effect around fraud, around, okay, you talked about trust issues earlier on. Earlier on also, I saw a data from the um, um, Financial Institution Training Center, which is the FITC, and it mentioned that we have thousands of fraud cases this year. Let me see if I can actually put a figure to it. About 11,679 fraud cases in the Q2 of 2023 alone. And about 50 billion naira has been lost, talking about even in the traditional banking space, to fraud from 2019 till now. So just encapsulate all of this together, and just what happened, the network disappearance on us while we're saying serious things.
So I mean, of course, these things affect trust when you hear this news, right? But and I so that if you think of how many people have come into the banking space, into the payment space in the last 3 years, and they left the huge amount of transactions being done digitally, as opposed to the traditional way of cash. I mean, it is huge. It is absolutely massive, because now the cost of transferring 100 naira is cheaper than the cost of paying somebody 1,000 naira or 2,000 naira. So of course you're seeing heavy adoption, and also things like COVID and the cash crunch move more people to that. So you will see a movement of fraud, the fraudsters, criminality moving from the traditional ways to the digital ways. I mean, when was the last time you heard about armed robbers going to a bank to raid the bank? Of course, I haven't heard any story in the last 5 years, or if there has been one, maybe one or two. So crime has moved into digital space, which is going to be expected. Everything is going digital, so is the fraud. Now the question is, what do we do about that? What we do about that is also to now put an infrastructure to prevent them, or also to make it very expensive. I would say today we're not making it expensive because information is not flowing about about the bad guys. Fraud is committed in one bank, and we don't, and that information of the fraudster is not shared to other organizations. So they keep hopping from organization to organization, which of course is not good for trust in the system. And that's why the fintech engine, fintech Nigeria group. I'm the CEO of I'm the chairman of the CEO committee. We've come up with we're actually building a platform for the members to sign up on based on governance, and we'll come up with some governance that will allow us to share information about fraudsters, so that once they know that, once we have information, we can actually prevent these things happening. So those are the things that are happening. From a technology perspective, I think technology is getting better. Of course, where this is Nigeria, this is this is Nigeria, and because of the infrastructure shortages, you're going to see outages especially in technology. But if you look at where we are today versus 5 years ago, there's been a great improvement in stability, and it's getting better. The telecom providers are now using we're now going to 5G in certain areas. 4G is being improved, and they're trying to make sure, with the help with their regulators, to ensure that we have at least 3G penetration in every part of Nigeria. Then the next bit is, how do we now give our citizens, especially the ones, and Nigeria has over 100 million people that are below the poverty line. How do you give them access to devices so they can be connected? Because I think the new infrastructure for Nigeria is not how many roads you can build, but how many devices and how many of your citizens, whether they are rich or poor, are connected into the ecosystem. That's going to be very, very key.
Okay. Mr. Dozie, we have just about 4 minutes, but let me try and put all these questions together and see if I can ask 4 questions at the same time. Artificial intelligence, what kind of innovation do you see, especially with generative AI and some of these issues? I spoke last Friday here on the show. I talked about artificial intelligence, the merits as well as the demerits. Where do you see its place in the digital banking space in Nigeria? Secondly, do you think that because of digital banking that we would accelerate financial inclusion in Nigeria? Do you also think that we run a risk of financially including the young people who are Gen Zs? Nigeria is a young country, who are Gen Zs, and at the end of the day, the rural unbanked are not financially included, because digital banking appeals to also the younger generation that understand all the devices that we hold. Number three, I also need to ask you this question because I know you have a lot of experience in the traditional banking space. The central bank has announced that there would be an eventual recapitalization of traditional banks. How do you see this impacting our digital banking space? And finally, perhaps regulation for you guys in that sector, and how you intend to increase customers' experience. God help you. 5 questions. Shoot.
Okay, so the first one, I think, let me start with the last one. I think the whole idea of digital banking is to enhance customer experience, which is what we're doing in Sparkle. I mean, and it allows us to build solutions around our customers. On the capitalization, I think especially digital banks need to be, because we're using substandard licenses. So I think if we're going to even increase adoption of digital banks, we must look at the licensing for digital bank and make it favorable for investment, and also make it ensure that that there's financial system stability, because you're only as strong as your weakest link. And so you must make sure that the digital bank have the right structures and have the right certification to play a role in the evolution of Nigeria. I'm thinking, yes, and artificial intelligence, generative AI, I'm very excited about it from a Sparkle perspective. We're doing so many wonderful things in terms of how we're going to provide new products and new solutions for our customers, not to just do banking, but to also understand their business. Sparkle is also playing the small business space, and small businesses need a lot of financial advisory, and not just financial advisory, tax advisory, HR advisory, and that's where generative AI is going to play a big role. Now, in the rural areas, first of all, it's only digital that is going to help us financially include people. So, and why I talked about, government working away, we have to work out a way to even give devices to people who can afford them, especially in the rural areas, is because you have to be connected. I mean, financial inclusion is not going to work if you're not identified, if you're not socially included, and if you cannot access social benefits. And the cheapest and cost-effective way to do that is actually a digital way. Now, the beauty about AI and generative AI is that it will enable us to speak to people in the language that they understand. You can actually speak in English and they can speak to the person in the language. You can actually build these solutions around that. So being able to communicate with people, regardless of where you come from, in a way that they understand, is going to build trust, is going to make it simple, and that's where you're going to get adoption. So,
Okay.
generative AI is going to be transformative from a social and economic perspective in Nigeria.
Okay, just before we go, we have, I can see like a minute or so. There's a question coming. There are questions coming, but let me take this one coming in. And the person says, "Hi, Nancy and your guest, Uzoma Dozie, that you actually have the two of his names. So the person sending in is also Uzoma Dozie. He actually said you must be Pascal Dozie's son. Of course, we do know that. I can see the resemblance. Now, his question is, on the digital banking issues lies in the fragility of our internet system, which we talked about earlier. He said, I've heard that you can never go into any business scheme that isn't approved or sanctioned by SEC. What is the plan of government and CBN to secure the tech space and make the subsector more reliable? That's talking from the regulatory perspective. Dozier too is his name. So from one dossier to another.
I mean, I think the regulatory arm of Nigeria is actually one of the most progressive in Africa. When you think that, first of all, we're the first to approve open banking, and we're actually working on that, which will unlock, opportunities for people in Nigeria. And when it comes to at least Naira, we're the first to actually do that. One of the few countries that have actually done that. Whether how successful or not it is secondary, but we have done that. And then we are also and the new central bank, and the new dispensation. Of course, you have the Minister of Digital Economy that is working on building infrastructure, connecting the different arms of government, so that we can come up with legislation, regulation, and policies, right, that will foster digital development and utilization in Nigeria. So a lot of work is being done in the background to
Okay.
ensure trust and ensure adoption.
I want to say thank you very much, Mr. Dozier. We have other questions, but this is just the only one we can take because we've run out of time. Thank you very much for this conversation this morning. I hope you enjoyed it as much as I did. Let's talk again soon. Let's see what continues to happen in your space. So have a fantastic